Welcome to the Mobilize section. Today me and Robbie are going to talk you through some of the concepts around healthy knee function, and we're going to look at a structure that will be laid out for every joint, which will involve a test and retest component. So for example, we're going to check the step up because that has a very direct correlation to knee function. Then we're going to do some release work and see if we can influence some of the soft tissue around the joint to reduce what we call neurological tone. Now, there's a lot of interesting science talking about trigger points, this myofascial release, and you'll have heard a lot of these ideas in different concepts like massage and things like that. What we're going to do is just simplify it a little bit and look for these spots and see, can we influence a temporary improvement in your movement and reduce sensations of pain or vulnerability to allow you to complete the work? If there's a more serious problem, sharper pain, don't think of this as something that will diagnose or fix any of that. Please seek the help of a qualified medical practitioner. Really, really important. From that, let's look at now some of the basic anatomy of the knee joint. As you can see Robbie beautifully demonstrating here, the knee is this connection between your thigh bone, which we call the femur, and your shin bones. The larger one here that I'm working up and down is called the tibia. The smaller one is called your fibula. Now this movement is the step up, and it involves movement at two joints, the hip and the knee. We'll deal with the hip later. Now we're going to look at the knee joint specifically. So to perform this well, the thing here that I'm just putting my fingers on, it's called your patella. And that needs to be able to track well so that you can avoid things like tendinosis or that dull kind of achy thing that you get if you run too much too soon. So what we're going to look at is how the soft tissue work, the stretching and the strengthening aspects that we'll explore will help you to move with a little bit more comfort. So the muscles that attach into the top of the knee from the thigh side, the front of that is called your quadriceps and the rear tissue is called your hamstring. Both of those large chunks of tissue play a really important role in stabilizing the step up itself. So if we look at a few reps, what I'm doing here is I have to engage the musculature on the back of the leg and on the top of the leg. And similarly, the musculature that feeds into the shin applying up into the knee. And for that, we call the front fleshy part here your tibialis anterior. And the rear part of that, we're looking at two muscle groups. One's called your soleus, and the other one's called your gastrocnemius. You don't really have to remember the names, it's just more for your kind of general education and to allow you to, when you hear that, a soleus stretch, for example, you know what that's referring to. So, from the perspective of movement now, let's say you're doing some step-ups and you feel something a little bit dull, there's a bit of an achy feeling in my knees, just not quite right. It's not sharp, direct pain, it's just not quite right. One of the concepts that we can use is seeing by influencing the tissue quality of the musculature that comes either up into the knee or down into the knee, whether the thigh or shin side, can we make a small reduction in that tone, that neurological tone. And so what we're going to look at here is, I've taken the ball, and in this particular instance, I'm going to look at releasing the tibialis anterior neurological tone. So that's that fleshy part in the front of the shin. I'm applying the ball onto that part of my shin, not on the bone itself or on the kneecap, on the soft tissue only. And that applies to all of the releases that we'll do. From here, concentrating on deep breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, about 60 to 90 seconds. And what you should feel is where there initially might be a little bit of like, ooh, that's a little bit ouchy. It starts to, and it releases, that intensity just melts away. And that's a sign of good tissue quality. If as you're putting the ball there, it's just very painful and continues to get more painful, that's suggestive that the underlying tissue quality isn't quite so good and it might need a little bit more assessment, and please get that checked professionally if so. From here, you're taking that away, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go back to the test movement and see, did the step up now feel a little bit easier to do simply from that knee perspective? Does that feeling of a little bit of discomfort or tension, whatever it was, does that kind of dissipate a little bit? This will only be a temporary measure because your body will revert back to its original tissue shape and the form of the tension that you're holding. So then we've got to do more stuff to keep that going. You're going to practice daily, you're going to be using HikeFit daily, of course, but now we also want to do a good stretch. So for this, a very simple but effective stretch, which requires no equipment, is a simple kneeling position. And you can see here, I've now got the knee in what we call full flexion, i.e. I cannot close the gap between my calf and my hamstrings any more than this. And you simply just need to apply an appropriate level of stretch to your knee by simply leaning back a little bit as I'm doing here. Holding that for between 60, 90 seconds. And again, as you feel that start to just let go of that tension, you carefully come up, and we're going to retest that same side. So we've now done a release exercise to deal with some of the neurological tone. We've also stretched that tissue combination, and it's going to affect both the thigh side and the shin side because of the knee's position. And then from there, we're starting to see, has that affecting the quality of the step up that we're doing. And then the final exercise, to start to get this to stick a little bit more so our nervous system understands that this isn't a temporary thing, we really do want to keep this connection for a lot longer. Now what we're going to do is place the ball behind our knee in the jointing between our hamstring and our calf musculature. I'm going to tuck my pelvis a little bit so that I don't use my low back to cheat the movement. And from here, I'm just going to do a 10-second squeeze. And so this, you can see, is doing knee flexion, this bent knee position, but I'm doing it by squeezing all of the relevant musculature for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take it out slowly. If you do it very fast, there's a chance you might cramp, so watch that. You're going to stick the ball back, and then last but not least, take that tension, that strength that you just generated, and apply that final layer to the next step up. And so if you use the combination of release, stretch, and strengthening concepts for every joint, we're very confident that you'll start to get a really good sense of what tools you need for every joint. And it could vary depending on where you're holding your own tensions or where you need to get a bit stronger. Look forward to seeing you for the next joint. Until then, here's to happy knees.